We host about 100 different team building events each year. We host a whole bunch of different kinds of events, from strategic planning to group coaching and that kind of thing, but 100 that really kind of count as team building. Often the intention is a training or where they want to develop people's leadership skills, but we always say that there's a connection piece, because what we know is it's relationships first, strategy second, rapport building first, and then action second. So here is how to get it started to get people connecting fast and powerfully. So whether you're doing this for a team building event, or you're doing this in your living room for a gathering of friends, here's what we do. So first of all, I'm going to walk you through it. So you first get everybody's attention. I like to use this bike bell because it's loud. If there is a group of more than 25 people, then I usually find that a bell is necessary. So I gather everybody. Hi, everybody. So glad you're all here. Will you take a moment? Will you turn to the people sitting on both sides of you, in front of you and in back of you, and with enthusiasm and authenticity, will you tell them how glad you are that they are here with you today? Go. So all of those components. So here's the behind the scenes comment about that. You have a strong command presence. You say, listen to me, I'm going to talk fast, pay attention. There are instructions. You're about to engage. The using of the word go seems to be really important because people will know that means start, get to action. And then the room like explodes with joy and hugs and excitement. And it is a game changer compared to if you are then to talk and give a welcome and whatever. That's boring, and it puts people in passive instead of active mode. So then after about 30 seconds, some groups naturally start to die down a little bit. Some will never die down. So 30 seconds-ish. That's when you might ding, ding, ding just a couple of times, but not in an annoying or patronizing way. If you do it too much, it's patronizing. So I might do, okay, everybody. I usually use the language, let's all come back together, instead of eyes on me or let's pay attention or whatever. There's a lot of also patronizing ways to do it. So let's come on back together. Oh, great. Let's come on back together. I often have to repeat myself a couple of times, but I stay with it so that they then start to really be quiet. Really wait till the group is fully quiet, but also not in a patronizing way, not in a like, I'm waiting for you kind of way. Because if you try and talk over even one group that's still talking, it gives the impression that you're not to be listened to. So, and also it's hard to yell depending on the size of the group. So great. I am overjoyed to get to be here with you all today. I'm going to ask a favor of all of us. So, right, like statement and then pause, and they know something important and mysterious and interesting is coming. Then I'm going to ask that we are the people in this room here today, that we are the people who drop our pretenses, who aren't trying to impress or trying to put on the like, everything's perfect in my life, how about you face, where we're going to be really real with each other, because the world needs more of that. Is everybody with me? Everyone good to do that? And people are like, yeah, good. But don't let them start talking more, right? Like, great. So we're going to do a couple of things. So first of all, and I'm checking. So depends on if it's a social kind of thing or if it's a work kind of thing. If it's a work kind of thing, they all probably have notebooks. If it's a social thing, they probably don't. So this part can be flexible. So I'm going to ask you to take a look around the room and identify two people that you'd like to get to know a little bit more for any reason at all. If it's a work setting, I would say write down their name. If it's social, just note them. Just note them in your head. And if you don't know their name, it's okay to be like, the man in the pink jacket. Okay, I want you to identify two people. Okay, great. So now also I'm curious, on a scale of 1 to 100, how well do you know this group? Not one individual person, but this group. 100 is you're all best friends. and you, maybe you're even all siblings, and that would be weird. 0 is you've never met and you don't know anybody's name. Okay, think of a number. Again, if it was in a corporate setting, I'd say write down your number. If it's a social setting, everybody get a number in your head. In about 7 seconds, I'm going to ask everybody to say it out loud all at the same time. But wait, because if you don't wait, 1 or 2 people will say their number, and then everybody else thinks they're supposed to say their number because culture eats strategy or instructions for breakfast. So if the culture is, oh, we're supposed to be saying it, even though the instructions weren't, people will follow everybody else's lead. There's the influence piece there. So, okay, great. And then I'll go, get ready. 3, 2, 1, say it. And everybody says it at once. And it's loud and it's funny. And sometimes I'll even say, wow, it sounded like you were in church, because they say something all together at the same time. So then you get to say, okay, so regardless of if your number was 90, I'm curious, did anybody say 90 or higher? Regardless of if your number was low, 20 or lower. Who said 20 or lower? Just curious. Okay, great. We all have the potential to increase that number by at least 1% today. And here's how we're going to do it in a moment. And Judy tells me that I use that term in the moment a lot, which I do. It's essentially saying, pay attention, there's instructions, but don't do it yet, because the moment people start moving, it's hard. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to get into a group of 3 people. I know you're all good at math. Just 3 people. If you're having, so hold on, don't start yet. If you're having trouble finding a group of 3, like put up your hand, or if you need another person in your group, we're going to really try and have all groups of 3. Once you get into that group, I'm going to give you a prompt. I'm going to give you something to talk about. Bonus points if you're able to get into a group with 1 or even 2 of the names of the people that you wrote down. Now, just know we're going to get into this group. I'm going to give you a prompt. So once you get into the group, there's nothing to do yet other than hang out with each other. Let's see if we can all do that in about 20 seconds. Go. So then there it is again. The go says like we're doing action now, and it's actually now. And then help the group to really get in groups of 3. You don't have to pre-count to see that it's an odd number or whatever, but 3 does seem to be the perfect number. If not, what's going to happen is there's going to be bigger groups, like groups of 8 and stuff, and then people don't have enough airtime because people are wanting to be inclusive and not exclusive. But if you as the leader say it's okay to be exclusive, meaning you're just picking 3, then they don't have to feel bad about like, oh no, you can't be in our group because that would be more than 3. It might then be like, okay, so we've got groups of 3 and 1 group of 4. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask you this, I'm going to share this prompt with you. And once I do, then you as a group are going to have about 3 minutes to talk about it. Stay talking about it. But if you haven't met each other, take a moment to do that. Share your name and whatever else is quick but interesting. Maybe it might be where you live or what you do as a job, depending on the situation. Okay, so let me give you the first prompt. Everybody ready? Everybody with me? And then you're going to say it, unless you're in a corporate setting, and then you're going to show it. So here are, you as the watcher, you can use any variety of these questions. I'm going to show you 2 slides. So usually with the first one, it makes for such interesting conversation where nobody thinks it will be. So what did you do this morning before work or before coming here? Be detailed. Or another good first question is, what were you doing 10 years ago and where did you live? So I'll usually say it once and then say, go, talk about it. And then I turn away from the group so they know that it's their turn to talk. After 3 minutes, then bring them back together. This is when the bell is almost always necessary, if it's 25 or more. The bell. Okay, great. All right, everybody, you good? Good. Now you're going to get into a second group of 3. And I like to use like hand signals because sometimes people often can't hear. So get in another group of 3. and I'll give you a new question. Go. They find the group. Then I'll go to this second question. And tell them again, depending on the chattiness of a group, I'll often do just for this one 2 or 3 minutes, this one 3 or 4 minutes, this one maybe 4 or 5. It's up to you though, kind of read the room. So here's what's one thing that's going really well for you this week, and that's a joy, and share a stressor. What's one thing in your life that's hard right now? Another good number 2 question is, what's a personality strength you're proud of, and what's a personality area of growth for you? If it's the coming of a new year, it's helpful to be like, and so for 2025, what's a growth area for you? Okay, then the same thing. Okay, after the couple of minutes, okay, great. Now we're gonna get into one more group and another question. You know the drill, go. Now, if it's a corporate environment, I would do this. If it's social, I wouldn't. What's a strength that this team or your team currently possesses? What's an area of growth for this team or your team? That doesn't make sense in a personal setting, and that's the same here. So if it's a personal setting, I would skip that one and then go right to the very last thing, which it's funny, in a corporate environment, I call it an engagement activity because 70% of the room are scared about the term team building. So it's the same thing, engagement activity. Here's the little write-up that you can pause and copy if that's helpful, but I'm going to talk you through it. Okay, so the very last group, in a moment, this is going to be your last thing, so make it count. I'm going to ask you to get into a group of 4. That's a different number than 3. I'll sometimes say that in a funny way for them to understand, like I really mean get into a group of 4, not 4-ish. And find a place to sit together, unless your group really wants to stand, then that's okay too, where you're able to sit and kind of face each other, and then it's going to be a new thing. Let's take about 20 seconds also. Find your group. Okay, go. So they find the group, and it's really important that you don't give the instructions before they're in their group, because if you do, they forget all the instructions by the time they're in their group. So now they're sitting in their group. And I tell them, I like to call this the 2-minute dump. And essentially what it is each of you talking about yourself for 2 minutes. Then pause, because there will inevitably be a couple of groans. And then if I have a humorous relationship with the group or that person, I'll say, for whoever groans, okay, fine, you can have 8 minutes. And then they're like, no, I wanted no minutes. And then I tell them, so this is how it's going to work. I'm going to have a timer, so don't worry, I promise I'll be a good timer. And then I usually use a group as an example, and I'll say, okay, so this group, so Sandy, let's say Sandy goes first. She's going to talk about herself for 2 minutes. It's okay if she's super surface or super deep. Any of it is 100% okay. The topic just has to be about her. So, that might be what her favorite kind of food is. It might be where she grew up and what it was like in her family, maybe what she wanted to be when she was a kid, when she grew up. Or it could be really deep, like hopes and dreams and fears. Now, the other 3 people in her group, they're just going to, what? Helps to keep them engaged, right? And they all say, listen. Yeah, they're just going to listen. And they're not going to do something that we commonly do in conversation, which is often a good thing. They're not going to ask questions. When they ask questions, they jump into the driver's seat instead of the talker. Let the talker have some space and grace. If you as this talker, if Sandy runs out of things to say, then I usually right here like to say, who in here is a planner? You like to plan. In your life, you like to plan. Lots of people raise their hand. And so I'll say, okay, so the growth area for you all is right now, because you're already starting to think, oh, I could say this, I could say this, I could say this. But the most interesting things often come out after what you've planned. And also, let's remember that silence is serene, meaning it does not have to be awkward. So for example, if Sandy's talking and she runs out of things to say, she might pause and be silent. The rest of the group is not going to try and rescue her by asking questions, but she might look around and she might see the tree outside, and it's going to remind her that she grew up in Virginia and she loved to climb trees there. She's going to talk about that. So give her the space. At the end of 2 minutes, I'll call it and we'll switch and we'll switch and we'll switch. And that's what it looks like. Everybody ready? Any questions? The first person who's going to start is, and I like to often give a designation because if they have to pick, sometimes they take like 15 seconds being like, do you want to, no, do you want to? The person whose first letter of their first name is closest to the beginning of the alphabet. On your mark, get set, go. Because then it's also telling them go right away. So then for just the first person, after 1 minute, I'll just yell to the group halfway, because people seem to lose a sense of time and they're like, oh my gosh, I still have a whole minute. Or like, oh my gosh, I barely got started. I'm still talking about just one tiny thing I wanted to say more. And then the other time that I'll call is 5 seconds when it's 1 minute, 55 seconds. And then at 2 minutes, usually do this for a second, ding, ding. And then, okay, great. Okay, everybody, so now get ready, and make sure you get everybody's attention a little bit, because if not, they won't actually know that it's supposed to switch, and then everyone's gonna feel bad when the last person doesn't get to go. Okay, so everybody ready? The second person is gonna be the person to the right. On your mark, get set, go. And I usually do the markets that go because it really tells them we're doing something different, even if they were like whispering on the side, we're doing something. So do that for all the 4 people. There is inevitably tears. There's new best friendships. I've had people say afterwards in the debrief, I got to know this new person deeper, better in 5 minutes than the last 5 minutes than I have for people who I've known for 5 years. So anyway, so afterwards, then bring the whole group back together and thank them. So I want to just thank you for being the kind of people who are willing to say yes, who are willing to do this thing on this Saturday afternoon, on this Monday morning, where we can be really real with each other and be really authentic. So I'm just curious, what did you gain? What did you just learn, or what did you gain from those last 15 minutes or so? No pressure, but if anybody has something they want to share, I would love to hear it. And I kind of model this to show that how it might be a good idea to get my attention about it is with a hand, because if not, they're like, is this formal? Do I raise my hand? Is it informal? But then inevitably 2 people try and talk on top of each other. And then I'll often do this. So if Gina over here is like, so great. So Gina, I would love to hear what you have to say, but hold on. So Gina's going to be first. Anyone want to go second? Okay, great. You'll be second, you'll be third, you'll be fourth. And then after that, I'll see if anyone else wants to also share. You'll have time. That's a really helpful technique because it tells number 2, they're going in that order, 3 and 4, and then it gives all the other people time to think. So then, okay, great, Gina, thank you so much. But before Gina starts, Gina, will you, it's funny to say like this, Gina, will you tell everybody just your first name? And she says, Gina. And now can we all say, hi, Gina, hi, Gina. And then it keeps the group engaged, and it's a memory tool for her name, and she feels important and special. And then she says her thing, and it's awesome. And then, thank you so much. I so appreciate you sharing that. Now, Armando, great. Armando, will you tell everybody your name? Armando. And everyone says, hi, Armando. It keeps it lighthearted and engaged. And then after the 4th person, then anyone else feel inspired? If there are a couple, great. So I encourage you to continue on now. Now you have fodder for the next 5 hours of conversation based on what some people shared. Thank you for being here. Keep it going. That's everything. If it's social, if it's a corporate environment, then we're moving on to some other activity or whatever. Maybe it's time for a break or something. So I think that's everything I got. I was just thinking I had one other thing. What was it? Yeah, okay, I'm gonna say, I think that's it. I'm just gonna pause it for me to think for a second. I remembered, if there's an uneven number, so if you've got groups of 4, but then you have one oddball group or whatever, you can make one oddball group 3, or you can make one oddball group 5, but this is then what you need to do. So now when we're on to our 4th person, if you just have one group of 3, you can then say, okay, so for everybody else, it's going to be your 4th person. For this group, now you all have 2 minutes to actually have dialogue, ask each other questions about anything that just came up. If it's the opposite way, where there's one group of 5, then, okay, so now we're going to do one more round. This group, you're going to do your 5th person. Everybody else, you now have 2 minutes to have a little bit of dialogue and ask questions about what just came up. I usually like to do it that second way better. Okay, thank you, and good luck.